I'm ready.
Good morning. I'm glad you're ready because we're live. This is Steve Attarian. I'm here with Stephen Wilson. We are here today to talk about the joy that your life could have with simple discipline-based decisions for eating well, having health and nutrition, energy and vitality in your life. And Dr. Stephen Wilson is a naturopath here in Grand Junction. He has spent most of his life researching and finding out what products, in terms of nutritional products, chemical reactions in our body create energy, health, wellness, vitality. At 73 years old, he spends a lot of his time running up and down the National Monument here in Grand Junction. And he is a healthy, vibrant, almost youthful man.
Almost.
And he is just going to edify us today with some knowledge that is God-honoring and hopefully will be taken deep in the heart so that it affects your daily decisions, which is what you need to do, is make different daily decisions when you're standing in front of the aisles in the grocery store, when you're making choices at restaurants, to be a more healthy, vibrant individual. Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. I haven't spent most of my life trying to figure out how the body functions. But, you know, the end result is, as you and I have been chatting about, this 1,000 people, and only one being able to be free of pharmaceuticals at the age of 60. When I saw those stats, those just happened to come into my life within the last few months. But prior to that, statistically speaking, we all knew that 1 out of 3 people would have a heart attack. I mean, that's a given. And I think the numbers are goofy about cancer. It's 1 in 3, except amongst men, and it's almost a guarantee we'll wind up with prostate cancer. And that's being accepted by our culture is part of the way we go. And it was appalling to me to have people suggest that you have to accept these diseases and deal with the chemicals that they want to inject in you to let you continue your lifestyle and not do anything about it. And yet, from a naturopathic side, I know of no science that suggests that inorganic salts and synthetic vitamins do any healing. Mm-hmm. So, what we try to do is we try to accommodate what we're told to do by saying, all right, I need calcium, so let's grind up some rock and put it in the body because that's the cheapest thing. And that type of accommodation is very costly because we can't get it into the cell, but we can call our mom and say, Mom, get off my back. I'm taking my calcium. I'm taking Tums. And
I eat Tums every day.
And so if we once understood that just a few moments of there's a classic statement, if what we're going to use to cure would prevent, maybe the cure is in prevention. And if a person, and I've asked friends my age, if you knew 20 years ago that you were going to wind up in this state of affairs with, diabetes or cardiovascular issues, and someone said, now that if we could go back 20 years, would you change what you're doing to avoid what you're going through today? And I've not had one of them say, if I only knew. And then invariably it will come back and say, but I was stubborn. I was going along with the crowd. I was doing whatever reason they can come up with to explain why they didn't change. Well, I'm of the opinion that the information was out there. It wasn't in easy form, but it was out there 4,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And if we were told to eat a certain way, and the promises of that lifestyle was incredible, and yet today we've turned our back on that. Now, with that, many of us are beginning to turn our feet and look to the principles in which we were built. And you just brought it to my attention about trying to shop for breakfast cereals. A friend of mine did a study on it, took the top 10 cereals in the nation today and looked at their content, and their isolated minerals, inorganic, and 50% sugar.
And inorganic meaning not living. There's
Not
no
dead.
the enzymes in that are not alive.
Uh-huh.
And organic now has multiple different meanings, but Dr. Wilson takes it from a perspective of inorganic meaning not alive.
So if we know that, and we know that it is a job, and to find sources that we can depend on is a critical issue. And we rely on one another to say, hey, I found this over here. And it's that kind of undercurrent of people that are saying, I really need to find a way around the problems that I have, because I can't continue to live this lifestyle, that of fatigue, that of stress, that of not sleeping, that of serious constipation issues. All of these things are pronounced. And then we come down with the diseases because our nutrients are not in our foods. And there is a difference between food and nutrients. And if people understood that, instead of eating this pile of stuff that is nutritionally void, we need to seek things that are dense, you can eat less of, and go further. And we need to understand, for a person to operate, they have to understand fundamental. You don't have to know all of the intricacies, but fundamentally what these elements do in their complexity. If broccoli will do this and you don't kill it by cooking it wrong, it will serve you many, many principles.
Mm-hmm.
If you could cut back on your meats, and it's not so much the meat, it's how they prepared it, how they grew it. Yeah.
How they grew it, how they slaughtered it, all the process. YouTube is, will show you some of the most horrendous processing plants. But to touch on the nutrients in broccoli, for example, I'm on hearing and understanding that, the broccoli that's on the shelf now is not necessarily as healthy as the broccoli that was on the shelf 50 years ago.
It's true.
Why is that?
Well, they haven't. Plants absorb their nutrients from the soil.
Okay.
If the nutrients aren't in the soil, you can't get them into the plant. So what man has done is he comes in with pesticides, herbicides, and all those, not for nutrient, but to get the plant to stand upright in the field.
Ammonium nitrate, which is, nitrogen is what the plant needs to grow. Mm-hmm. That's what science is telling them.
Mm-hmm. And it does grow, but there's no nutritional value in it.
It's hollow.
It's hollow. So the plant stands upright in the field, and it's literally taking a chemical enema from the soil. And that's all it is. So, we eat that, and we try to do what's right according to what we've read and what we've seen in advertisements.
Chemical enema.
Enema.
Thank you.
I read that some years ago. So the point is we do things partially out of not understanding, partially out of being in a hurry to shop, and partially out of cost. And there's a host of things that go with it. But that's why it is so interesting to work with people who are of the same mindset, and they're looking for reserves. One person saying, here's a place where we can get this produce, and here's a place where we can get this, and here's a little finding that I have. I was in Denver Monday doing a little seminar for a football team, and one of the clients came up and said, I listened to you about sugar the other day, so I've been buying yogurt. And he mentioned the name of the yogurt, and you'd think on the surface it was really a good yogurt. And he said, then I heard about this sugar thing you were talking. And in a little cup of yogurt, it was 28 grams of sugar.
Wow.
And
How many
it's-
teaspoons is that?
Oh, jeez. There's 4 teaspoons per ounce. So just a bucket load of sugar. In fact,
How many grams per ounce?
oh, Steve, don't do that. The person should have around 2 tablespoons of sugar in their blood, glucose, per day. Just on a continuum.
Okay.
And right now, I saw the average that they were averaging 53 tablespoons of sugar,
Tablespoons, not teaspoons.
teaspoons of
Thank
sugar per day. And then we wondered, well, if you can only get so much of that glucose or sugar into the blood, where's the rest of it go? You kind of need to look at yourself and say, are you 10, 15, 20 pounds overweight?
More than that.
Yeah, that's where it's showing up. So people, when they get a chance to understand that, and they understand that sugar is really addictive, it metabolizes to an opiate-like substance. Plus, it's got a little kick in energy. And if you're not eating foods that create energy, why wouldn't you resort to that?
What choices do we have?
Well, we
I
need
walk down the store on the aisles, I pick out the food, I go to the counter, I buy it, I take it home, I cook it, I'm responsible, I take care of my family. What choices do I have other than to avoid fast food and to not buy 2 Starbucks a day? What choice do I have as an American to avoid these prevalent items that are evasive in our society?
Let's talk about preparation first, shall we?
Sure.
All right. The vast majority of people will buy carrots, beets, whatever, and they'll take them to the basin, and they'll wash them, and then they'll peel them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And then they'll slice them,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll throw them in water and boil them.
Yes.
And then they'll take the water and pour it down the sink.
Yes.
Those vitamins are all water soluble.
Ah.
So the first thing that they've done, and by the way, most of the nutrients are in the skin and right under it. So they've peeled all of the nutrients away. Then they boiled it. Water boils in our country, 190 degrees or something like that.
That's 212.
Yeah, whatever. And we got altitude, so anyway, they boil the water. Vitamins are killed at certain temperatures. So what they're doing is eating pulp.
Okay.
And that's it. And they go down the road and they think that they've fed themselves. And then they look at themselves and say, I'm doing everything right. How come I still have arthritis, respiratory issues, headaches, and hormonal issues?
Okay, so let's touch on proper preparation. You've got a sink full of carrots and beets. How would you prepare?
Well, I cook waterlessly at low temperatures. And then we eat a lot of raw.
Okay.
That's a start.
Now
So
describe.
we eat the peelings. We don't scrub them. We don't peel our vegetables. We scrub them, clean them up, and then cook them at low temperatures in a waterless cookware. It's expensive cookware, and that's how we prepare our foods. So that preparation is key, because if you have minimal amounts of nutrients, in Europe, just to give you an idea, the mom or whoever's the cook will shop daily. She goes to the market, and these people look at their foods, and they have color. They have a background of looking at the color and the texture, and they smell these things, and they know what foods are wholesome,
Mhm.
and so they prepare them. And there's that phenomenon in amongst the French. It's called the French paradox. How they can eat all of these bad foods, but they drink wine and they don't have heart attacks. And so all at once we begin to see that this paradox is because of some of the properties that are in wine, resveratrol being one of them, that actually cleans
I should
the
drink
arteries.
more wine?
Yeah,
You telling me to drink more wine?
well, it's
Because I could drink more wine.
you could do that. Well, There are other ways that you can get by the wine without the headaches and still get the resveratrol. That's an option. Now, those people that would prefer the wine, that's a choice. I don't drink wine. So if we began that little summation and then cut back on the eating of the meat, the way we do. In fact, there are some foods that it takes more energy to process them in your gut than they produce.
It's kind of like ethanol.
Okay.
So discuss, we're pointing out the problems, but discuss the proper solutions. So with meat, we talked about earlier, eating less of it. Proportion-wise, they say, I'm holding my hand up here,
Okay.
a palm worth of grains, a palm worth of vegetables, and a palm worth of meat on a plate is a proper balanced diet. The third, the 2/3, all that stuff they do with the plate nowadays for nutritional balancing. How much meat? Obviously the biblical principles would be to avoid pork, to avoid crab and other animals that crustaceans in general, that would basically eat carrion and eat other species. So we try to avoid those things, as the Bible would tell us. I love good pork chop, and I do love some crab. And shrimp's not pretty tasty too. So avoiding those things for me, being raised, with those things in my diet, is a challenge. I see the healthy benefits of it. So let's talk about one, because I've been told the kosher preparation of meat is way healthier for us, and I'd like to, from your perspective, find out what is, or how does a kosher preparation of meat get handled, and then what portions, or what should we look for, what should we shop for, how can we change?
Well, from a kosher position, the priest, if you will, makes sure that the organs are all healthy. If there's any one organ, they don't accept any part of the animal. And it's in the process that they kill it, where there's no adrenaline pushed into it. So they have a process of killing where it's virtually pain-free for the animal. And then the way it's drained of its blood. And the reason that the importance in the Hebrew approach to eating says eat nothing that's blood. Now you got to keep in mind that the blood not only takes nutrients to the cell, but it also brings waste back.
Right.
So the concept here is if you're eating the blood, there's waste that's from the animal. And along with that, the Hebrew diet was a whole lot more free of meat than you'd ever mind. Their protein came from different things such as nuts and things of that nature. So they didn't have a mainstay of meat as a principal part of their diet. Fruits, nuts, vegetables. There are vegetables that are loaded with protein capabilities, and they're cleaner. So if I'm sitting here looking some years ago at how we were acquiring our protein and our foods, our carbohydrates, and if you can analyze this, just here's the problem: how can we create more energy with less fuel? Well, we need to look at how clean is the system that we're trying to move down the road. So if the system that you have is clogged up, it's going to take more energy to move it.
I agree.
Okay. And so what we do in society is we say, all right, we'll make more energy and move it. So instead of 20 grams of protein, you need 40. Well, in my thinking, why don't we remove the waste from the body, make it clean? I flew airplanes for a long time. And the whole thing was how clean are the wings. The cleaner the wing, the more efficient it was, the faster and further you could go on the same fuel.
Right.
The more clutter you had on the wings, the slower it flew and the less efficient. So if we just move that inside our body and began to clean all of the tissues, the rubbish that's in them, You create more flexibility. You create a host of things that's beneficial to operation of the body, and it will take less fuel. So now we got to talk about, okay, what fuel burns cleaner? Does meat burn cleaner? Well, no, it really doesn't. If you buy kosher meat, it's $15, $16 a pound.
Right.
But even then, it's not as clean as, say, protein from nuts.
Okay.
And if we really got clever with it, there now we're finding some protein from goat that, one, in comparison to time element, it takes 6 to 7 hours to process meat protein. In goat protein is 20 minutes.
Mm.
And the protein in hemp, hearts, things of that nature, is 3 hours. So
Okay.
all at once we have been able to find a quicker and more stable form of energy, and it burns them, and less debris. And you get more efficiency out of it because obviously if it takes energy to process it and you only have to work it for 20 minutes, then that's material already in tissue doing its job.
But some of us are looking for more ways to burn calories. I mean, sometimes the best workout I get in the day is pulling the plug on the tub water and fighting the current.
Swimming upstream.
So there's the calories. I thought the key was to find foods that took more calories to process than they gave you, so that you had less caloric intake in the day.
Well, they've been believing that.
There's a philosophy based on that, isn't there?
Well, there is, but here's the issue. They have been doing this calories in, calories out concept for 50 years. If you burn more calories than you intake, then you should lose fat, right?
You should.
Okay. The only problem is these doggone little cells communicate with one another. And when you start cutting back on caloric intake, they chat back and forth. They say, oh, here we go again. Our fine feathered friend is going to cheat us from food. So they automatically just slow down their own metabolism.
Mm-hmm.
And they store in fat.
Mm-hmm.
They store everything in fat. For the long run, because they're going to protect themselves against you. And now you've got to figure out a way to burn that. Well, the fun part about understanding that one little concept, there is a hormone called leptin that's manufactured in fat that turns into the hypothalamus, and it says, what we need to do is we need to burn fat for energy, because fat produces more ATP or adenosine triphosphate than proteins or carbohydrates. It's much more efficient to run on that. So if you have the hormonal balance to where it turns fat, and you can train the body to do this, we've trained the body to do exactly the opposite, to burn carbohydrates and protein. If we do this real quickly, then and establish the fact that we're going to supply the nutrients, the minerals and the vitamins, and your body will convert this fat into energy, and you become much more efficient. It's you've got to have the right kind of fat that does that. It cannot be hydrogenated. It can't be fat that's been adulterated.
What is hydrogenated?
Or they pump in a hydrogen element into it.
Okay.
For preservatives.
Ah.
And you can keep it indefinitely. So this whole thing of preservation of a element for profit has, granted, the companies have gained profit from doing that at your expense. So then you're caught up in the illness factor. So the cycle continues, and you're eating that, getting sicker, and you're going over here for prescriptions, if you will. Ooh, oh, okay, here we go. So the cycle continues on and on and on and on. And in fact, just in 1930...
Does Monsanto own milk? Wouldn't that be interesting? Those corporations on it.
We're not going to get there. In 1938, the whole of the nutritional industry, the naturopaths, when we started building processed foods, the naturopath stood up and said, what we would like to have you put a list and list those ingredients as an imagination food.
Imitation food.
Imitation food, thank you. And label that, and all the ruckus that started. I mean, can you imagine if any one of the producers of foods today had to put that label on their thing saying this is imitation food?
Well, and a friend of mine recently said that Velveeta says something like cheese product or cheese spread because they couldn't call it cheese.
Okay, they can't. There's a host of companies that make spaghetti.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the spaghetti is really not spaghetti. It's
More or
chemicals. It's chemicals. You can make a host of things without it being what you say it is. It smell like it.
I saw a gluten-free pretzel, and it was, I was trying to avoid gluten. I thought, okay, well, the gluten-free pretzel. I want pretzels. I'm trying to avoid wheat and processed flour. So look, gluten-free pretzels. I buy them. I take them home. I'm eating them, and they're pretty good. At a moment of intrigue and curiosity, I turn it over and start reading the ingredients. Oh my gosh, the list of chemicals that were in that, and everything under the sun that wasn't pretzel.
But they call it a pretzel. So here we sit, trying to be healthy, trying to get past this age of 60 and be free of pharmaceuticals. And everything we're putting in body is non-nutritional.
It's bulk.
That's all it is.
Well, because we talk about, and we're going to have to wrap up here in the next 2 or 3 minutes, is nutrient-dense foods.
Mm-hmm.
And the word organic, meaning in the grocery store, there's the organic aisle and the non-organic aisle. Supposedly organic foods, because they are using compost, they are using other healthy ways to raise the vegetables and fruits, are 30% to 33% more nutrient rich than non-organic foods. So even though they might be 5, 10, 15, 20% more expensive, you're getting more nutrients per pound or per bite than you are by buying the less expensive option. That's still really not a lot of nutrients that we need. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. It's a challenge. And no one, from my perspective, is telling you it's easy.
Okay.
It's a job. It's a job to feed your family correctly. But the reward that you get is healthiness. It's really a reward when you can talk to your children and say, here's why we're doing this, to build your immune system up. And I know I've got four children and they've got all children. So when I see people that come to my kids with a spoonful of sugar, or I'm just making a suggestion, and watch my daughter stand between them and their kids and say, no, we're not doing this. It's really a pleasure to me. Because the vitality that comes long-term, sugar is a short-term dash. Nutrients are a long-term run. And that's what life is. It's not a burst for 100 yards. Life is sustained, and it talks about we're running the race, and it's a long race.
Wonderful. Well, that is a wonderful place to end. And I appreciate your time here today, Dr. Wilson, and I hope you'll stay with us for the long run, and that we are back again next Friday morning at 8 a.m. We hope to see you there. God bless, and have an awesome, amazing week.